The night bus waited at the edge of the station like a large, patient animal breathing in slow, steady sighs. Its headlights cast soft cones of light onto the damp pavement, where the last passengers moved gently, without hurry. The world felt wrapped in a thin blue blanket of evening, that I stepped inside with a small bag and a quieter heart than usual. The air carried the faint scent of clean fabric seats and cooled metal. Overhead lights glowed dimly, not bright enough to disturb, just enough to guide. A few travelers were already settled in, a woman with a knitted scarf resting her head against the window, a young man listening to something through headphones, eyes closed. No one spoke. The silence was shared in kind. I chose a seat by the window halfway down the aisle. The glass was cool when I leaned my temple against it. Outside, the city lights shimmered like distant stars that had decided to live closer to Earth. A soft chime sounded. The doors folded shut with a gentle sigh. The engine rumbled awake, not harsh, but low and rhythmic, like a distant purr, and then we began to move. The bus rolled out of the station slowly, as if careful not to wake the night. Streetlights passed in steady intervals, their golden halos drifting across the window and over my hands. Each light came and went in its own time. There was no rush. Only motion. Shops stood dark behind lowered shutters. Apartment windows glowed here and there, small rectangles of warmth in the quiet buildings. At one intersection, a cat crossed the empty street, unbothered, unhurried. Inside the bus, the sounds were simple and repetitive, the soft hum of the engine, the faint rattle of something distant in the luggage compartment, the whisper of tires meeting asphalt. These sounds layered together into something steady and predictable, comforting. I let my breathing match the rhythm of the road, inhale as we passed one streetlight, exhale as it faded behind us. The city began to thin. Buildings gave way to wider roads. Traffic lights blinked yellow to no one in particular. The sky above, deep and endless, held a pale crescent moon that followed alongside us like a quiet companion. There was something gentle about traveling at night. The world did not demand anything. No emails, no errands, no sudden decisions. Only the simple act of moving forward. I shifted slightly in my seat, adjusting the small pillow behind my neck. The glass vibrated faintly with the motion of the bus, a soft reminder that we were going somewhere, even if the destination felt less important than the journey itself. Outside, the last cluster of city lights slowly faded behind us. Ahead lay open road. And for now, that was enough. The city lights dissolved behind us like distant embers fading into ash. Soon, there were fewer buildings, fewer signals, fewer signs of hurry. The road widened and stretched forward in a long, quiet ribbon of gray. Inside the bus, everything softened, the overhead lights dimmed further, settling into a warm amber glow. Shadows lengthened between the seats. Someone near the back adjusted their jacket with a gentle rustle, then grew still again. A faint click marked the driver turning on the interior night setting. It felt like permission to rest. I let my shoulders sink deeper into the seat. Outside the window, fields replaced concrete. Dark, open land rolled quietly beside us. Occasionally, a farmhouse appeared in the distance, its porch light glowing like a small lighthouse in a sea of black. Then it, too, would slip away behind us. The bus found its rhythm on the highway, a steady hum, a low vibration beneath the floor, the soft sweep of wind along the sides. Each sound repeated itself in patient cycles, as though the vehicle itself was breathing. I matched it again, slow and easy, Inhale, the bus glides forward. Exhale, the road slides beneath us. The moon moved in and out of view as clouds drifted lazily across the sky. Sometimes it shone clearly, pale and calm. Sometimes it blurred behind thin veils of gray. There was no urgency in the sky, no sudden shifts. Only gradual change. We passed a rest stop glowing gently in the darkness. A single vending machine flickered in the distance. 2 parked trucks slept beneath tall lamps. Our bus did not stop, it simply carried on, steady and assured. The seats around me had grown quieter still. The young man's headphones had slipped slightly, but he did not stir. The woman in the scarf now breathed in a slow, even pattern, her reflection faint in the glass. I watched my own reflection, too. It floated softly over the dark landscape, as if I were traveling in 2 places at once, inside the bus and inside the window. The reflection blinked slowly. Eyelids heavier than before. There is something about forward motion in the night. It asks nothing of you. You do not have to steer. You do not have to choose the direction. You simply allow yourself to be carried. The tires hummed along painted lines that flashed rhythmically beneath us. White dash, dark space, white dash, dark space. A quiet metronome for the mind. The temperature inside the bus was just cool enough to invite stillness. I tucked my hands into my sleeves and listened. No announcements, no conversations, only movement. Ahead, the highway curved gently to the right. The bus leaned slightly into the turn, smooth and unhurried. Outside, a line of tall trees appeared, their silhouettes swaying faintly in the night breeze. For a moment, it felt as if the world had simplified itself, road, sky, breath, and somewhere in that simplicity, a calm began to settle deeper, like a blanket drawn up just a little higher. We continued forward, steady and quiet, into the open dark. The road stretched endlessly ahead, smooth and dark, reflecting faint traces of moonlight. The bus moved with quiet confidence, as though it had traveled this same path 1,000 times before and knew every curve by heart. Inside, stillness deepened. The gentle vibration beneath the seat became familiar, almost comforting, like the rocking of a cradle. Every small movement blended into the next, the hum of the engine, the whisper of air through hidden vents, the soft creak of suspension as the bus adjusted to the road. I noticed how time felt different here. Minutes no longer arrived sharply. They drifted instead, soft-edged and uncounted. Without clocks or conversations demanding attention. The night expanded, wide and patient. Outside the window, the landscape changed slowly. Low hills appeared, their outlines barely visible against the sky. Occasionally, clusters of trees passed by, their branches forming dark patterns that slid across the glass like slow-moving shadows. A distant car approached from the opposite direction. Its headlights grew brighter, then brighter still, until for a brief moment the entire bus interior glowed pale white. Then it passed, and darkness returned just as gently as before. The moment felt like a quiet wave, arriving, cresting, and fading away. My eyelids felt heavier now. I adjusted my position slightly, pulling my jacket closer around me. The seat fabric was warm from stillness. Somewhere nearby, someone sighed in their sleep, a long, peaceful exhale that seemed to invite the whole bus to relax further. The driver maintained a perfectly steady pace. No sudden braking. No sharp turns. Only smooth continuity. Outside, clouds parted enough to reveal more stars. They scattered across the sky in soft clusters, distant and calm. Watching them through the moving window created a strange illusion. The stars seemed still while we drifted quietly beneath them. It felt less like traveling and more like floating. My breathing slowed naturally. Inhale. Gentle rise of the chest. Exhale. Shoulders sinking deeper into rest. The glass against my temple carried a faint coolness, grounding and soothing. Each small vibration traveled through it in soft pulses, reminding me that motion did not have to mean effort. Sometimes movement required nothing at all, only trust. We passed a narrow bridge over unseen water. For a moment, reflections shimmered below, silver ripples catching the moonlight before disappearing behind us. The sound changed slightly there, a hollow echo beneath the tires, then returned to its familiar hum. Inside the bus, sleep was spreading quietly from seat to seat, heads tilted toward windows, arms folded loosely, breathing synchronized in slow, peaceful rhythms. Even thoughts seemed to move more slowly now, like clouds drifting across a wide sky. Nothing urgent remained. Nothing needed solving tonight, only the road continued, patient, endless, welcoming, and as the bus carried us forward through the calm darkness, the rhythm of motion became something softer still. Almost like a lullaby without words. Somewhere past midnight, the bus began to slow. The change was so gradual it felt like a dream shifting direction rather than a machine reducing speed. The steady hum softened, the vibration beneath the floor grew lighter, and the outside darkness gathered closer as we left the highway. A soft amber light flickered on near the front. No announcement came. None was needed. The passengers who were awake seemed to understand instinctively. The bus turned gently onto a smaller road lined with tall lamps spaced far apart, their light pooling quietly on the ground. Ahead, a small roadside stop appeared, a quiet island of warmth surrounded by darkness. A single building stood open, its windows glowing gold against the night. A few parked cars rested nearby, their surfaces reflecting the lamps like still water. The sign outside hummed faintly, and somewhere in the distance, a wind moved through unseen grass. The bus came to a smooth halt, the engine continued its low murmur, steady and reassuring, as the doors opened with a soft sigh. Cool night air drifted inside, carrying the scent of earth and distant rain. It felt fresh, gentle, and calm. A few passengers stirred. The young man removed his headphones slowly, blinking as if returning from far away. The woman with the scarf adjusted it around her shoulders and stood carefully, moving without hurry. No one rushed toward the exit. Even waking felt slower here. I remained seated for a moment, watching. Outside, the night felt wider than before. The sky stretched endlessly above the small rest stop, stars clearer now without city lights. A vending machine glowed quietly near the entrance, its soft buzz blending with the distant hum of insects. Eventually, I stepped off the bus. The ground felt firm and cool beneath my shoes. The air wrapped around me like calm water. Somewhere, a kettle whistled faintly inside the building. A driver from another bus leaned against a railing, sipping tea in silence. Everything moved at half speed. Inside the cafe, warm light softened every edge. A clock ticked gently on the wall. A sleepy attendant poured drinks without speaking much, understanding that night travelers preferred quiet companionship over conversation. I bought a cup of warm tea and held it between my hands. The heat spread slowly through my fingers, grounding and comforting. Steam rose in soft curls, disappearing into the still air. No one checked their phones. No loud voices broke the calm. It felt like a shared pause, a collective breath taken by strangers traveling through the same night. After a while, the driver turned on the bus lights briefly, a silent signal. Passengers returned one by one, footsteps unhurried. Doors closed again with their familiar whisper. I settled back into my seat, placing the empty cup carefully into the pocket ahead. The engine deepened its tone. We pulled away from the rest stop, leaving the warm building shrinking behind us until it became just another small light in the distance. Then nothing at all. Inside, darkness returned gently. The bus rejoined the highway, and the steady rhythm resumed as if it had never stopped. Yet something felt softer now, as though the pause had allowed the night to settle more deeply into everyone. I leaned my head back against the window once more. Outside, the road welcomed us again, and the journey continued, quieter than before. The highway welcomed us back with a smooth, familiar rhythm. The bus gathered its gentle speed again, not hurried, not slow, just steady. The engine's hum deepened slightly, like a contented sigh as we returned to open road. Inside, the lights dimmed once more to their soft amber glow, barely touching the tops of the seats. Most of the passengers had surrendered to sleep now, heads rested against windows. Hands lay open in laps. Jackets had become blankets. The bus no longer felt like public transport, it felt like a shared floating room moving quietly through the dark. Outside, the sky had cleared completely, without the interference of city lights. The stars stretched wide and countless above us. They shimmered in clusters and faint rivers, scattered across a velvet sky. Watching them through the moving glass created a slow, dreamlike illusion, as if the stars themselves were drifting, even though it was only us gliding beneath them. The road markings passed in gentle repetition: white line, dark space, white line, dark space. A rhythm so steady it could lull even restless thoughts into silence. I rested my forehead lightly against the cool window again. The glass carried tiny vibrations from the road, soft, consistent pulses that traveled through skin and bone, subtle as a heartbeat. Far off in the distance, wind turbines turned lazily on a hilltop. Their red lights blinked slowly, one after another, patient and unhurried. They looked like quiet guardians of the night, watching over empty fields. A long bridge appeared ahead. The bus rolled onto it without a sound, except for the slight change in tone beneath the tires, a low, hollow resonance. Below us, unseen water stretched wide and dark. But here and there, moonlight touched its surface, creating silver threads that shimmered briefly before slipping away behind us. It felt like crossing a thin line between one quiet world and another. Inside, someone shifted gently, then grew still again. The driver adjusted nothing. The steering remained smooth and unwavering. My breathing had slowed without effort. Inhale. Cool air brushing softly at the edge of sleep. Exhale. Warmth spreading through chest and shoulders. Thoughts became softer now, less defined. They drifted like distant clouds, appearing briefly, then dissolving without needing attention. Outside, a small town appeared for a few fleeting minutes, a gas station glowing under bright white lights, a closed bakery with a striped awning, a single upstairs apartment window still lit, someone perhaps reading, or simply awake. Then it was gone. The darkness returned, wide and peaceful. There is something deeply comforting about being carried through the night, without responsibility. The driver guides the road. The bus holds the path. The stars keep their quiet watch. All that remains is to rest. The seat cradled my shoulders more fully now. The hum of the engine softened into something distant, like waves rolling far away on a calm shore. Ahead, the highway stretched onward, endless, patient, and kind, and somewhere between one passing star and the next, wakefulness began to loosen its gentle grip. The bus continued forward, steady as a slow breath. At some point, it became difficult to tell whether my eyes were fully closed or only resting in that soft space in between. The darkness behind my eyelids felt the same as the darkness outside the window, deep, calm, and endless. The rhythm of the road remained constant, a low hum, a gentle vibration, the quiet sweep of tires over smooth pavement. Each sensation blended into the next until they were no longer separate sounds, but one continuous current carrying us onward. I opened my eyes slightly. The window reflected the inside of the bus more clearly now than the outside world. Rows of seats stretched behind me in soft amber shadows. Sleeping figures swayed almost imperceptibly with the motion, like tall grass moving under a light breeze. Beyond the reflection, faint shapes of hills rolled past. They appeared and disappeared so gradually that it felt less like passing through a landscape and more like the landscape was breathing around us. The moon had lowered slightly in the sky, its glow softer now, filtered through thin strands of cloud. A distant truck traveled alongside us for a few quiet moments. Its cabin lights glowed dimly, and I could just make out the silhouette of its driver, still, focused, peaceful in his own rhythm. Then the bus gently overtook it, and the truck drifted behind. Its headlights shrinking into two small stars on the road. Inside, the air felt warmer. Someone near the front let out a slow, contented sigh. The driver adjusted nothing, the steering remained fluid, effortless. The bus seemed to know the road instinctively, following its curves like water flowing along a riverbed. My thoughts had become softer now, less like words and more like impressions, a memory of afternoon sunlight through curtains, the feeling of cool sheets at the end of a long day, the quiet hum of a refrigerator in a silent kitchen, simple things. Familiar things. The bus leaned gently into a long curve. For a moment, gravity shifted slightly, pressing me softly toward the window. Then we straightened again, returning to perfect balance. The movement was so smooth it felt choreographed, like part of a quiet dance with the night. Outside, a line of trees stood close to the highway, their branches blurred into dark streaks as we passed. But above them, the sky remained clear and patient. Stars held their places, unmoving, steady, silent witnesses to our small journey below. Breathing required no effort now. Inhale, exhale, the cool glass beneath my temple felt less distinct. The seat held me more completely. The sounds of the bus seemed farther away, even though nothing had changed. Time stretched wider still. There were no miles to count, no signs to read. Only motion. Only night. Only the steady forward glide through darkness. Somewhere ahead, the road continued without interruption, and somewhere within, the boundary between waking and dreaming grew softer, like mist dissolving at dawn, gentle and unhurried. The night deepened into its most silent hour. It was the time when even thought seemed to rest, when the world paused between yesterday and tomorrow. The bus moved steadily through this quiet space, its motion so smooth it felt almost unreal, as though we were gliding rather than rolling along the road. Inside, nearly everyone slept. The soft rise and fall of breathing filled the cabin with a calm, invisible rhythm. Jackets slipped slightly from shoulders, heads leaned comfortably against windows, and the faint amber lights created gentle halos above each seat. The driver remained a steady silhouette at the front, framed by the wide windshield and the endless road ahead. Outside, The landscape had grown darker again, just before the first signs of morning. The moon hung lower now, pale and tired, drifting toward the horizon. Stars still shimmered overhead, but their brightness felt softer, as if they, too, were preparing to fade. I watched the road markings appear and vanish beneath us. White line, darkness, white line, darkness. The repetition quieted the mind completely. There was nothing to anticipate, nothing to remember, only the present moment unfolding gently. Far in the distance, faint fog gathered close to the ground. The bus entered it slowly, and the world outside softened at the edges. Lights blurred into glowing circles. Trees became silhouettes wrapped in mist. For a while, it felt like traveling inside a cloud. The sound of the engine grew slightly muffled, absorbed by the fog outside. Even the headlights seemed calmer, illuminating only a short stretch of road ahead, encouraging patience instead of speed. I shifted slightly, pulling the collar of my jacket closer to my neck. Warmth settled easily around me. The seat felt perfectly shaped now, as if it had adjusted over time to hold every traveler gently in place. A faint melody drifted forward from somewhere behind, not music exactly, but the soft rhythm of someone breathing through sleep, almost like humming. It blended with the engine's tone until the two sounds became indistinguishable. Comfort settled deeper. The bus exited the fog as gradually as it had entered. The sky opened again, vast and clear. On the horizon, barely noticeable at first, there was the faintest suggestion of lighter color, not sunrise yet, just the earliest promise that morning existed somewhere ahead, but night still held us. A roadside sign flashed briefly in the headlights and disappeared. A lone farmhouse stood far from the road, its single window glowing warmly. For a moment, it felt like witnessing a secret, a quiet life continuing peacefully while the rest of the world slept. My eyelids lowered again. The motion of the bus felt slower now, though it was not. Time had stretched so gently that speed no longer mattered. The journey itself had become the destination, a long, calm passage through darkness toward rest. Breathing slowed even more. Inhale. Soft and easy, exhale. Long and unhurried. Outside, the horizon waited patiently, and inside the bus, wrapped in warmth and motion, the quiet hours before dawn carried us forward, deeper into calm. Somewhere ahead, the darkness began to thin. It was not sudden. The night did not disappear. Instead, it softened at the edges, like ink slowly diluted with water. The horizon carried a faint gray-blue glow, subtle, almost imagined at first. The bus continued its steady path. Inside, nothing had changed, and yet everything felt slightly different. The air seemed lighter. The hum of the engine remained low and constant, but it felt gentler now, as if it too sensed the coming dawn. Most passengers still slept. The woman in the scarf had tilted her head further toward the window, her reflection faint in the glass. The young man's headphones rested loosely around his neck now. His breathing slow and even. The shared stillness felt deeper than before, the kind of quiet that only exists in the final hour of night. Outside, the sky gradually shifted, dark blue softened into muted indigo. Indigo thinned into a pale wash of silver near the horizon. The stars began to retreat one by one, not vanishing all at once but fading quietly, like distant candles being gently extinguished. The bus moved through open countryside now, fields stretched wide on either side, their details still hidden in shadow. Low hills rolled in gentle waves. Here and there, small clusters of trees stood together, their outlines clearer against the growing light. I blinked slowly, the glass of the window no longer felt quite as cold. The reflection of the bus interior began to fade as the outside world grew brighter. Soon, I could see beyond my own silhouette, the land itself coming back into focus. A thin band of soft peach color appeared along the horizon. It was delicate and calm, not dramatic. There were no loud bursts of color, no sudden brilliance. Just a quiet unfolding. A reminder that morning arrives not with urgency, but with patience. The road curved gently through a valley, mist clung low to the fields, forming pale ribbons that drifted above the grass. The bus passed through pockets of cool air. And the windows fogged slightly at the edges before clearing again. Inside, someone stirred softly, a yawn, a small stretch of arms, then stillness again. My breathing remained slow, steady, matched to the rhythm of the wheels. Sleep had not fully taken me, but it had wrapped around everything, softening the edges of thought. Even wakefulness felt gentle now. The driver guided the bus along a long, straight stretch of road. Ahead, the sky brightened another shade. The moon, pale and faint, hovered low and nearly transparent. It seemed to watch quietly as its time came to an end. There was comfort in this transition. Night had carried us safely. Morning was waiting without rush. The journey continued between them, balanced, calm, unbroken. The fields slowly gained color. Greens emerged from gray. The outline of distant rooftops became visible. A narrow river flashed briefly beside the road, reflecting the growing light like brushed silver. Inside the bus, the quiet remained intact. We were still suspended between worlds, not fully night, not fully day, and in that soft in-between space, carried forward by steady motion, everything felt simple and at ease. The sky continued its quiet transformation. What had been silver blue now warmed into pale gold near the horizon. The fields on either side of the road revealed their textures, rows of crops, soft grass bending under a light morning breeze, narrow dirt paths weaving through the land. The bus moved forward as steadily as it had all night. Inside, the change was subtle but noticeable. The amber lights overhead seemed less necessary now. Natural light filtered in through the windows, touching seat backs and resting softly on sleeping faces. One by one, passengers began to wake, not abruptly, just small movements. A shoulder rolling back into place. Fingers brushing hair away from a forehead. A slow inhale that felt deeper than the ones before it. The woman in the scarf blinked and looked outside, her expression calm and unhurried. The young man lifted his head slightly, adjusting his headphones without turning them on. No one reached for conversation yet. Morning did not demand speech. I straightened a little in my seat. The window no longer reflected the interior. It showed only the world outside, clear and returning to detail. Farmhouses stood quietly in the distance, smoke rising in thin, pale lines from chimneys. A flock of birds lifted suddenly from a field, turning together in a smooth, effortless arc before settling again. The road signs appeared more frequently now. Small towns were approaching. The bus passed through a village just beginning to stir. A bakery light switched on behind a glass storefront. A cyclist pedaled slowly along an empty street. A dog waited patiently near a gate as someone inside prepared to open the day. Everything moved at the same gentle pace the bus had kept through the night. No rush, no noise, only gradual awakening. Sunlight touched the tops of trees first, then rooftops, then finally stretched across the road ahead of us. It wasn't bright yet, just soft and steady, like a hand resting lightly on the world. Inside the bus, the driver reached forward and adjusted something near the dashboard. The interior lights faded completely now, allowing the morning glow to fill the cabin naturally. The long journey was nearing its end. There was no sudden feeling of arrival, only a slow awareness that the road ahead would soon lead into streets, into stations, into destinations. But for now, we were still moving, still carried. I noticed how rested my body felt, even without deep sleep. The rhythm of the night ride had done something quiet and kind, untangling thoughts, smoothing sharp edges, making everything softer. Outside, the sun finally crested the horizon fully, a warm beam stretched across the fields, turning dew into tiny sparks of light. The bus drove straight into that glow, not blinded by it, but welcomed. Morning had arrived, and we were still gently in motion. Morning unfolded completely as the bus approached the city. The countryside slowly gave way to wider roads, then intersections, then familiar signs of waking life. Small shops lifted their shutters. Traffic lights blinked from yellow to green with renewed purpose. A few early cars joined the streets, moving calmly through the fresh start of the day. The journey, which had felt endless during the night, now seemed quietly finite. Inside the bus, passengers gathered themselves gently. Jackets were folded. Bags lifted from overhead compartments with soft movements. No one hurried. It was as if everyone understood that the calm of the night ride still lingered and should not be broken too quickly. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and golden. It revealed small details unnoticed before, the texture of seat fabric, dust motes drifting slowly in the air, the relaxed expressions of travelers who had shared hours of peaceful motion together without ever speaking. The driver guided the bus through the final streets with the same steady care as before. Each stoplight, each turn, felt smooth and unforced. The engine's hum, once the soundtrack of darkness, now blended with distant city sounds, a passing bicycle bell, a door opening somewhere, the faint murmur of morning voices. I watched the world outside with quiet attention, a cafe setting out chairs onto the sidewalk. A child walking beside a parent, backpack bouncing lightly, trees glowing softly under new sunlight. Everything felt fresh, as though the night had gently reset the world. The bus slowed, not suddenly, just gradually, the way it had slowed at the midnight stop hours earlier. The station appeared ahead, familiar yet somehow different in daylight. Its windows reflected the morning sky instead of darkness. The tires rolled onto the platform, the engine softened. Then settled into stillness. For a moment, no one stood. The quiet remained, holding us together for a final breath of shared calm. The journey had ended, but its rhythm lingered, in slow breathing. Relaxed shoulders, peaceful thoughts. The doors opened with their familiar sigh, cool morning air entered, carrying the scent of coffee and clean pavement. One by one, passengers stepped off, each returning to their own lives, their own destinations. I remained seated for a moment longer, looking out the window where the night had once lived. Now it held only sunlight and movement. The glass was warm beneath my hand. The long road, the stars, the silent hours, all of it already felt dreamlike, as though it had existed somewhere between sleep and waking. Finally, I stood, lifting my bag, stepping outside. I felt grounded yet light, as if the journey had quietly carried away unnecessary weight. The bus rested behind me, calm and patient, ready for another night, another set of travelers seeking rest between places. The doors closed again, the engine stirred softly, and as the bus prepared to leave once more, the morning continued, gentle, unhurried, and full of quiet beginnings.